They sat atop stars and spoke as gods. The Galactic Council's High Assembly convened for its 900th cycle above the throne world of Requaria, orbiting a supergiant whose light had sterilized lesser civilizations before their species crawled from oceans. Thrones shimmered across the chamber, each sculpted from the histories of its bearer, one carved of bone flesh from extinct rivals, another spun from gravitational singularities. They weren't leaders, they were endings, and tonight they would laugh. One of the outer world archaeo fringes is pulsing again, hissed Grand Executive Velox of the Harvan Dominion, his voice a melodic slither of dry amusement. Pulsing, chuckled Supreme Seed Mother Fatel of the Vren. You make it sound as if it lives. The chamber rippled with elegant condescension, as if curiosity itself was an embarrassment. Only one throne did not smile, Archivist Nal, old even, by council reckoning, sat enshrouded in silence, wings folded tightly behind his shell of obsidian scales. It is the soul system, he murmured. Again. Even the laughter dimmed slightly. Soul humans, the unrecorded ones, a species older than their charts yet unregistered. A technological ghost, no signals, no warp lanes, no ambassadors, no trade, only silence and ruins. So many ruins the Council had visited Sol 1,000 years ago, expecting primitives, finding none, no cities, no ships, just stone and stillness. But the ruins weren't made by savages. They were symmetrical, precise, covered in molecular glyphs still unsolved by the brightest AI minds. One tower had no shadow, another sang. They found no humans, just wreckage, bones carbon-dated past known starlight, so they left, filed it under extinction prior to observation, and forgot. Until now. Council Probe 88 Zeta, drifting near the edge of the Sol system's dead moons, had sent a pulse. Not a distress. Call a prayer. They're waking up. The feed came through scrambled static, whispers, symbols no one could read but felt. At first the Council dismissed it, glitch, ghost signal, solar interference. But then the stars shifted, not metaphorically, literally. Probe arrays in 3 neighboring sectors reported angular drift in their positional lock. At first, off by a nanosecond, then 3, then 20, a nearby black hole registered mass fluctuation. Not expansion, displacement. Something massive had entered its gravitational field and left without curvature trails. Velox stood, his voice sharp. Deploy inspection fleet, now. Acknowledged, came the response. A fleet of 50. Orbit frigates, data miners and AI war chariots. They reached Sol in 6 days and didn't report back. Not silence, something worse. One message, unencrypted, plain galactic tongue. This system is under reclamation. No signature, no threat, just policy. Then they saw it, footage from one drone that barely escaped. A ship. No, not a ship, a monument, floating above the gas giant Saturn, its hull blacker than vacuum. No lights, no energy readings, just presence, as if the void parted around it. Engraved along its length were symbols older than language. Even the drone's AI refused to translate. Its last log, they remember more than we ever learned. Then it deactivated itself. The drone kept drifting. Dead. But its camera kept rolling, and it caught the moment the warship moved. Not a burst of engines, not acceleration, just shift. Reality blurred, time fractured. Saturn's rings bent away from it, and in the wake of its movement the stars flickered, as if blinking, as if watching. The High Assembly stood silent, for the first time in living memory. Then came the next shock. Sol's sun changed. Its signature shifted from yellow to white in under 12 seconds. Spectroanalysis showed it hadn't aged. It had been Optimized, refined, as if someone had rewritten the fusion process, reignited it with intention, and orbiting that sun, 12 new objects, spherical, perfect, not built, awakened, gravitational fields stronger than Council core worlds, and inside each, warships hundreds of designs unseen, formations tight, intent silent. They did not transmit, they did not aim weapons. They simply waited, positioned as if guarding. Velox slammed a claw against his console. How can they be alive? They were extinct. Nal, the archivist, turned slowly. They were never extinct. He raised a withered digit pointing to the stars. We were simply born after they ended. The Council fell into panic. Armies mobilized. Diplomatic contingencies prepared. The Empire had not fought a war in centuries. They did not know how to fear. Now they did. An emergency envoy was dispatched. 50 ships, white-flagged, broadcasting surrender as policy before it was demanded. They entered Sol. They did not return. Their final transmission wasn't words. It was a view from orbit of Earth, green, blue, towered, alive, cities carved into continents, orbiting mega-structures humming softly, and around it dozens of ships, human. Some looked impossibly ancient, corroded, aged, cracked, but their eyes glowed, their weapons gleamed. Others were new, like thought given metal, like hope forged from extinction, and on every hull a single symbol, not a threat, a memory, a reminder. We are what waits beneath the silence. The envoy's lead ship cracked in half moments later. No explosion, no beam, just judgment, a soft hum, and gravity folded, crushed, done. The Council held no vote. There was nothing left to discuss. Sol was marked forbidden, not for others, for themselves. A warning, a grave, a question with only one answer. What happens when humanity remembers? And far, far out, beyond the Empire's reach, on a dark moon orbiting a nameless world, something stirred, a beacon, buried beneath kilometers of rock. It began to blink. 1, 2, 3. Then a voice, human, male, calm. You called us extinct. Pause. Then why did you leave the lights on? And the galaxy realized too late. That was not Earth's first war. It was their return. And Earth had never truly slept. He awoke screaming. No air, no memory, just gravity and pain. Then light, pale blue humming softly. Not harsh, not artificial. He blinked. His eyes adjusted before he remembered having eyes. Hands next. He raised them, slowly, cautiously, as though they belonged to someone else. Calloused, scars on the knuckles. Nails squared, warrior's hands, but he didn't know his name. He was floating, not in space, not in water, in something between a field, gentle, holding him upright. It felt like gravity with a conscience. Then came the voice. Vitality confirmed. Neural pathways intact, memory scaffold pending. Feminine, calm, not AI, but not entirely human either. He turned his head, slowly. He was not alone. There were others, dozens, maybe hundreds, suspended in similar fields, all human, all still asleep. Yet beneath their chests, pulsing softly, was light, a heartbeat that was not their own. Welcome back, Commander Lyric. The name hit him like a wave. Commander, Lyric. The words didn't feel like titles. They felt like burdens. He stumbled forward, the field releasing him with respectful slowness. His feet touched the floor. It welcomed him, warm and curved. Metallic, but not cold. The room adjusted around him. Lights brightened, walls curved away. The silence became richer, like it had been waiting to listen. And there she stood, or rather she emerged. From the wall, from the air, from memory itself. The voice, human form, late 20s, hair black, skin bronze, uniform pristine but unfamiliar. Her eyes were galaxies, not poetic metaphor, literal, spirals of light swimming in oceans of dark matter. Do you know what year it is? She asked. He frowned. No. Do you know where you are? He hesitated, then. Sol, Earth. Orbit? She nodded. Do you know what you are? He said nothing. She stepped forward. You are Commander Lyric, Architect Class Warlink. Last of the First Fleet, Guardian of the Silence. The words broke something loose in him. A flood, flash, a ship, massive, darker than black, moving through a war zone, not firing, just observing. Flash, alien faces, fear, fire, a council, laughter turning into screams. Flash, Earth, burning, not by enemy hands, by its own. We lost, he whispered, didn't we? The voice did not answer. Instead, she turned, and the wall behind her melted into transparency. Space, soul, and in its orbit, 12 great vessels awakened. They buried you in stasis, Commander, she said. Each ship received a core soul. Yours, a human being, a mind old enough to remember how this war started and how it ended. He watched as one of the vessels shifted, not turned, resonated. It didn't thrust, it didn't burn fuel, it just changed the rules. Space bent around it. Planets moved respectfully aside. You were not built to fight. He turned to her. Then, what was I built to do? She smiled, sadly, to remember, a beat, because memory, Commander, is the deadliest weapon of all. Suddenly, alarms, not loud, not panicked, just aware. Council vessels approaching, the voice said. Observation configuration, no weapons primed, passive intent. Recon, Lyric muttered. They're watching, measuring. She nodded. They don't believe what they saw. He clenched his fists, looked down at them. I don't even believe what I am. She tilted her head. You are human, but you are more. And then he heard it, a sound from deep within the ship, not metal, not machine, a heartbeat not his, the ship's. It remembers too, she whispered. Outside, the approaching fleet shimmered into view, sleek, monolithic, council-built, bristling, with sensors, not attacking, not yet, just watching like vultures circling a storm they hope won't reach them. Lyric stepped forward. The viewing screen widened until it filled the chamber. He could feel the ship breathing around him, living, waiting. Do they know? He asked. The voice answered instantly. They think this is our resurrection. A pause. It isn't. Lyric turned sharply. Then what is it? The voice flickered. When she spoke next, it wasn't her voice. It was hundreds, layered, deep, echoing. This is our recollection. He felt the words rattle through his bones. Earth hadn't called its warriors back because it needed defenders. It had remembered who it was and decided to wake up. Lyric stared out at the council fleet. They're scared, he said. The voice smiled. Good. He stepped onto the control ring. No chair. No buttons, just thought. The ship responded. All 12 ships aligned in orbit, not to attack, to face forward, to be seen. Lyric raised one hand. Below, Earth pulsed, one deep thrum. A beat felt not in ears, but in space itself, across the galaxy stations. Flickered. In council chambers, representatives dropped their scrolls, claws, fronds, tendrils. Every AI paused. Every weapon system shut itself down, not by hack, by consent, because they had felt it too. The pulse, the memory, the war that was never recorded, because it didn't need to be, because no one who fought it had ever forgotten. And now, neither would they. Commander Lyric closed his eyes. He remembered fire and silence and promises made under collapsing moons. He opened them again. Let them watch, he said. The voice nodded. They will. And when they ask why we rose again. She stepped beside him. We'll tell them, because you forgot what we never could. Behind them, Earth breathed deeper, and for the first time in 1,000 forgotten years, humanity blinked, and the stars blinked back. Pull back, now! Tactician Prime Selex's voice tore through the comms deck of the council vessel Vicari's sight. His frills flared, limbs shaking with a fear no simulation had ever trained for. But the helmsman didn't respond. No one did. Because they were. Already frozen, staring, orbiting Earth had once been a rite of passage, a dead planet, a mystery. Now it felt like blasphemy. Below them hung not just a world, but a verdict. A reminder, Earth was awake, and it was looking back. 12 ships hovered above it, moving with no thrusters, no energy emissions, just raw gravitational intent. Ancient, monumental. Some still bore scars from wars no council history contained. Their hulls shimmered with something no sensor could identify, but every life form felt in its bones. Memory, and that was the weapon. Selex trembled. His 6 eyes couldn't stop watching the central ship, the one called Talon of the First Flame. In their intercepted feed, the one housing a human commander. The one that hadn't moved, because it didn't need to. Its presence distorted the laws around it. Light curved oddly, shadows fell where they shouldn't, signals bounced off its surface and returned garbled, like they came back ashamed. Signal. Them, Selex whispered. "We've tried," said one of the bridge techs. "Every frequency, open band, visual gestures, even archaic Morse variants. No response." "What about their ships? They're not scanning us. They're not doing anything." That was the most terrifying part. The warships weren't posturing. They weren't threatening. They were simply present. And presence was worse than aggression. Presence said, "We don't need to explain ourselves." Selex reviewed the internal logs. Again, it wasn't just Sol's orbit that had changed. Their entire solar gravitational grid had tightened. The moons had shifted into unnatural alignments. Orbital decay around Jupiter had reversed. Saturn's rings, previously stable for eons, now vibrated in perfect harmonic sequence. And above Venus, 2 ships floated silently. One was cracked open like an egg, rusted, covered in asteroid pockmarks. The other was identical, but pristine, polished, fresh, the same design separated by thousands of years, and both fully operational. That was impossible. Technological timelines didn't behave like that. Unless they'd never stop building, unless time itself was no longer the constraint. "Sir," whispered the helmsman, "I think they see us." Selex turned toward the viewport. One of the human ships had turned slightly, not toward them, just angled. It was enough. All lights on the Vicari's sight dimmed, not failed, dimmed like the ship was holding its breath. The AI core stuttered, then shut itself down, whispering only one sentence in the council tongue. "We were never first." Selex bolted toward the command dais. "Initiate blind warp, random vector, get us out." The drive core didn't respond. He slammed his claw against the emergency override. Nothing. Then the view shifted, not through the viewport. In his mind, a memory, but not his. He was standing in a council war chamber. No, not standing, hovering, younger, filled with pride. Across from him, chained, was a human, barefoot, bleeding, silent. He remembered the interrogator screaming, "Why won't you answer?" And the human had smiled. "Because the silence is the answer." Selex collapsed to his knees. It wasn't a hallucination. It was a message. The humans were transmitting via memory, not data, not light, not quantum, but remembered sensation. And that meant something worse. They'd been watching, since before the council had ships, since before the council had names. Selex choked on his breath. "We can't fight this." The comms lit up. Another ship, Venzai, spoke. "Something. Just past us. No signature, no visual, but it moved through 6 hulls, no damage, just analysis." A pause. "Sir, I think they're scanning our history." Another pause. "Wait, no, not scanning, sorting." Sorting, choosing, discerning. Selex stared at the central ship once more, and in that moment a symbol appeared along its side, glowing, pulsing. the symbol of the council, crumbling, disassembling, then replaced with a single phrase in perfectly rendered galactic standard, "Your time was borrowed." Then it faded, not just from the screen, from language. The phrase no longer existed in their databanks, as if it had been forgotten. That was when he realized what this was. Not war, not retaliation, reclamation. This wasn't about Earth rising. This was about what Earth was taking back. Memory, narrative, time. Everything the Council thought it had inherited. They had simply been holding it until its owner returned. The ship pulsed again. Selex felt himself grow cold. It wasn't hate, it wasn't revenge, it was accounting, and the humans were reconciling the ledger. The final transmission from Vakari's site came 10 minutes later. No visuals, just a voice, not human. Selex's whispered, "Broken. We never had the future. They just let us borrow the silence." The fleet never returned, but their echoes did, and across the stars, council fleets began recalling. Worlds turned inward. A phrase began to spread, even among species who had never shared language. A phrase first heard in a dream. They are not ancient because they survived, they are ancient because they ended and came back anyway. And somewhere deep inside the first flame, Commander Lyric opened his eyes. "They're listening now," he said. The voice beside him smiled. "Then it's time we told them what they forgot." And the stars, for the first time in recorded galactic history, bowed. He was standing on a bridge, different from this one, a smaller vessel, blood on the floor, sparks dancing in the air. Outside, Earth was burning. No, not burning, transforming. Council ships swarmed the atmosphere like hornets. Terran defense satellites fired blindly, overrun, screaming. Cities fell, skies darkened, and then came the order from Earth itself. Silence the sky. Every human warship shut down its signals. Vanished from the networks, turned inward, and one by one, they activated the fall protocol. Lyric saw himself arguing, "This is suicide." He was younger, harder, a general with fire in his eyes. "Not suicide," came the reply from the central. "Command AI, hibernation," and he remembered now. They hadn't lost the war. They had chosen to forget it. The vision ended. Lyric fell to his knees. Sweat beaded down his forehead. The slab still pulsed, quietly. "You buried us," he said. "No," said the voice. "You did." She walked around him slowly, voice gentle, never mocking. "When the final wave came, we could have fought. We had the power, the fleet, the tech. But you, humanity, chose instead to disappear, to sleep." He looked up at her, voice ragged. "Why?" "Because you saw the future." She placed a hand over his heart. "And you hated what it made you become." Lyric's chest ached. He saw flashes now, beyond even the Council's wars. Before the Empire, before diplomacy, even before Earth. Burned. Humanity had conquered galaxies, once silently, completely, and then recoiled in horror at what it had become. So they had erased themselves. They had made extinction a choice. "Sleep until they forget," Lyric whispered. The voice nodded. "And now, Commander, they have." His breath caught. He looked around the chamber. The other slabs, each a fragment of the self he had buried, each one a weapon, each one a story the galaxy was never meant to remember. "But we've returned," he said. "Yes," she answered, "but not to conquer." Lyric stood slowly, eyes on the constellations above, stars that no longer existed, systems humanity had touched, then left in silence. He understood now. This wasn't resurrection, it was recollection. He turned to the voice. Then, "What do we do?" She smiled, soft and sorrowful. "We remind them. In the orbit above Earth, the Council's observation fleet floated in stasis. They dared not fire, dared not speak, because the first flame had begun to move, Not fast, not hostile, just enough. To make itself seen, a human warship passing by, was a message, and the message was simple. You were not first. Commander Lyric stood on the central ring of the bridge, body tense, voice quiet. "Prepare contact pulse," he said. The ship obeyed. It did not beep. It did not flash. It simply resonated. The stars shifted color. For 10 seconds, all AI cores in the surrounding sectors paused, stunned into non-function. Council envoys watched in horror as their systems translated the incoming wave, not as speech, not as code, but as emotion. A collective feeling, carried in a signal older than language. Grief, not rage, not vengeance, just grief. The pulse ended, and in its wake, thousands of ships across the galaxy went silent, not by force, by choice, out of respect, out of shame, out of understanding. "Commander." Lyric turned from the screen. The voice watched him. "They'll never forget this," he said. "No," she agreed, "and that's why it matters." He placed his hand on the ship's core interface, felt it breathe beneath his palm. Not metal, not code, something else. "Are we the last?" he asked. She shook her head. Others are waking, one by one. Her eyes looked past him, into space. The remembered are stirring, not to fight, but to remind. Lyric felt something break open in him. The old anger was gone, replaced with purpose, with history, with hope. He gave the order. "Set course for the archive worlds." The first flame turned, silently, majestically, and every system it passed trembled, not because of the noise it made, but because of the silence it left behind. And in that silence, the galaxy remembered.